This one cut, the cut almost every gardening video tells you to make, can cut your tomato harvest in half. Not by a little, by half. But before you make a single cut on your tomato plants this season, I want you to do one thing. Walk out to your garden, find the little plastic tag that came with each plant, and actually read it. Because there's a word on that tag that decides whether pruning is going to give you a bigger harvest or quietly wreck it. And a lot of us have been ignoring it for years. Let me show you what I mean. Look at this stocky little bush tomato, loaded with fruit, sitting in a raised garden bed. And now, look at this towering vine climbing 6 feet up a stake with tomatoes at every stage of ripening. These two plants look different because they are different, right down to their genetics, and they need completely opposite pruning. Treat them the same, and on one of them, you are literally cutting off the fruit before it ever grows. I learned this the hard way. I killed the harvest on a whole row of Roma tomatoes 2 summers in a row, snipping away like a maniac, feeling very productive, wondering why I barely got any fruit. Turns out I was deleting the exact branches that were supposed to feed me. So today I'm going to show you the one identification step that prevents the biggest mistake, the correct way to prune each type with real numbers, and the other mistakes that cause sunscald, disease, and wasted effort. And near the end, I will share a finding from a university trial that honestly changed how I think about pruning forever. It goes against what the gardening internet keeps telling you. Stick with me for that one. So let's start with the mistake that dwarfs all the others. Treating every tomato plant the same. Every tomato you grow falls into one of 2 camps, and the difference is written into their DNA. Determinate tomatoes, sometimes called bush or patio types, carry a natural mutation in a gene called self-pruning. What that mutation does is tell the plant to grow to a fixed size, usually around 3 to 4 feet, set almost all of its fruit in a tight 3 to 4 week window, and then stop. It's genetically programmed to quit. That's the key part. Once it stops growing, it cannot regrow what you remove. Indeterminate tomatoes are the opposite. They have a working version of that gene, so they just keep going. Leaves, flower cluster, more leaves, more flowers, over and over, climbing until the first frost kills them. Outdoors, these tall vines can hit 6 to 12 feet easily, and they carry fruit at every ripeness stage at once. Now, why does this matter so much? On a determinate plant, those little side shoots we call suckers, the ones growing above the first cluster of flowers, those are the fruiting wood. That's where a big chunk of your tomatoes come from. So when someone tells you to strip all the suckers off every tomato plant, and you do that to a determinate, you are hand-removing your own harvest, and the plant physically cannot grow it back. I've seen the number thrown around that this cuts a determinate's harvest by 30 to 50%. I want to be straight with you. I could not find an actual university trial behind that specific figure, so treat it as a rough estimate. Not gospel, but the direction is real. Less fruiting wood means less fruit. Iowa State's Extension Office says it plainly. Removing suckers above the first flower cluster on a determinate just doesn't get you more tomatoes. So how do you tell which type is standing in your garden right now? 3 quick ways. The fastest is that plant tag or seed packet I mentioned at the beginning. Look at the words printed on the label. Determinate, bush, or patio, that's your compact, all-at-once type. Indeterminate, vining, or cordon, that's your tall, keep climbing type. Garden centers and seed catalogs almost always print this somewhere on the tag. The second way is just watching how it grows. A determinate stays stocky and wide and sets a big flush of fruit around the same time. An indeterminate keeps stretching taller and taller with green and red fruit hanging on it at once. And the third way is knowing a few common ones. Roma, Celebrity, Rutgers, and most of those little patio varieties are usually determinate. Sunscald, Big Boy, Better Boy, Brandywine, and Cherokee Purple are all indeterminate climbers. But be careful here, because a bunch of varieties, including Roma and a lot of cherry tomatoes, are sold in both determinate and indeterminate versions. So the variety name alone isn't enough. When in doubt, the tag is the boss. And if you truly can't tell, prune conservatively like it's a determinate so you don't accidentally cut fruiting wood. Alright, now the fun part, the actual how-to, and it splits into 2 clean paths depending on what you just identified. Let's do determinates first because it's beautifully simple. You barely prune these bushy plants at all. All you're going to do is clean up the very bottom of the plant. Remove the leaves and suckers from ground level up to the first flower cluster, and then you stop. That's it. Below the first flowers, tidy it up for airflow. Above the first flowers, hands off, because that's your harvest. One little tip that a lot of people get wrong. Keep the strong sucker sitting just below that first flower cluster. Don't yank it. That one becomes a productive branch loaded with tomatoes. Also, strip off any leaves that are actually touching the soil, because those low leaves are a super highway for disease splashing up every time you water. Then, just support the plant. A tomato cage works great, or a wooden stake around 3 feet tall. And whatever you do, never try to prune a determinate down to a single stem the way some people do with vining types. You'll be left staring at a sad, bare plant with almost nothing on it. Anyone can get this right. It's honestly easier than the fussy version. Indeterminates are where pruning actually earns its keep, so let's slow down and get the numbers right. You want to start when the plant is about 12 to 18 inches tall, which is usually 3 to 4 weeks after you transplant it into the garden. Any earlier, and it's too young to bother with. First move. Remove the suckers below the first flower cluster, with one exception. Keep the strong sucker growing right underneath that first cluster. Just like with determinates, that keeper turns into a productive second stem for you. Now you make a choice about how many main stems to run, and I'll be honest, this one is a genuine judgment call that experienced growers argue about. Running a single stem gives you the earliest fruit and the best airflow, but it needs tall, sturdy staking. 2 stems is the comfortable middle ground most home gardeners land on, and 3 stems work well inside a cage. There's no single correct answer, so don't let anyone tell you there is. Whichever you pick, pinch your suckers out while they're small, ideally under 2 inches, when they snap right off between your fingers. Once your plant actually sets fruit, strip off the bottom 12 inches of leaves to stop soil-borne disease from splashing up onto the plant. Then repeat the whole check every 10 to 14 days. 2 guardrails to burn into your memory. Never remove more than 1/3 of the plant's leaves in one session, or you'll shock it. And stop pruning entirely about 1 to 2 weeks before your first harvest, so the canopy can shade your ripening tomatoes from the sun. One last seasonal move. About 4 weeks before your first expected fall frost, cut off the growing tips at the top of the plant. That's called topping, and it forces the plant to pour its energy into ripening the fruit it already has, instead of making new growth that'll never finish in time. Before we go further, 2 habits that prevent more heartbreak than almost anything else, and they cost basically nothing. First, clean your blades. Every cut you make is an open wound, and dirty pruners carry diseases like bacterial canker straight from one plant into the next. So wipe your pruning shears down before you start and between every single plant. A jar of rubbing alcohol works if you give it at least 30 seconds of contact. Or you can dip them in a mix of 1 part bleach to 9 parts water for a minute or so, but keep the bleach contact short so it doesn't corrode your tools. A slick trick is to keep 2 pruners going and alternate, so one's always soaking while you use the other. Second, only prune when the plant is dry. Pick a dry, sunny morning. When you prune a wet plant, that thin film of water lets bacteria and fungus ride right into your fresh cuts and spread. A dry morning means the wounds seal up fast. 2 tiny habits, a whole lot less disease. Real quick, if this is helping you get more out of your garden, go ahead and subscribe. I break down this kind of practical, no-nonsense growing every week. Okay, back to it. Now let's knock out the mistakes that are quieter, the ones that don't kill your plant outright, but slowly bleed your harvest. The big one is over-pruning. Stripping off too much leafy canopy feels tidy and satisfying, but it leaves your tomatoes exposed to direct, blazing sun. And tomatoes get sunburned just like we do. You end up with those pale, papery, blistered patches on the fruit called Sunscald, and that fruit is basically ruined. This is exactly why that 1/3 rule matters so much. Mistake number 2 in this batch is topping too early. Cutting the growing tip is a great end-of-season trick, like I described a minute ago, but if you do it in the middle of summer, you just amputated all of the plant's future fruit. Timing is everything with that cut. Third, removing the wrong sucker. I keep hammering this because it's so common. That strong sucker just below the first flower cluster is a keeper on both types. A lot of folks confidently snip the one branch they should have protected. And the science behind this is the part that finally made pruning click for me. Leaves are the plant's sugar factory. Through photosynthesis, the leaves make the sugars that flow into your tomatoes and create the actual flavor you taste. So when you strip off too many leaves, you shrink the plant's ability to make sugar in the first place, on top of risking sunburn. That's the real reason aggressive pruning can leave you with blander, smaller fruit. The leaves are the engine. Okay, now the finding. I promised you at the very start, the one that honestly changed how I prune. Here's the setup. Almost every pruning guide online promises that pruning gives you more tomatoes, bigger yields, huge harvests, that kind of thing. So let's actually look at what happens in a controlled trial. Back in 1978, Oregon State University ran a clean side-by-side experiment on early girl tomatoes, which are indeterminate. They took one group and pruned it hard down to a single leader on a stake. The other group they left unpruned and let it sprawl across the field. Same variety, same soil, same everything else. The pruned, staked plants did produce bigger fruit, about 29% larger on average, and those tomatoes ripened earlier. That part matches what the internet promises you. But then you look at the total weight of tomatoes coming off the field, and it flips completely. The unpruned, sprawling plants produced 55 tons per acre. The pruned, tidy, single-stem plants produced 24. The pruning more than cut the total harvest in half. The University of Missouri's Extension Office says the same thing in plain language. Pruning will not increase your total yield. You might want to hear that twice, because it runs against almost everything you've been told. So here's the honest truth, and this is the whole reason I made this video. Pruning does not give you more tomatoes. It gives you bigger, earlier, cleaner tomatoes with less disease. Those are real, wonderful benefits, and for a lot of gardens, they're absolutely worth it. But if your goal is maximum total pounds off the plant, you should actually prune less, not more. You're making a trade. Nobody selling you a pruning guide seems eager to admit that, and I think you deserve to know it before you pick up the shears. And this is where your own garden's conditions should steer you. If you live somewhere hot and sunny, where Sunscald is a real threat, lean toward pruning less and keeping more of that leafy canopy to shade your fruit. But if you're in a humid or short-season climate where diseases like blight are the bigger enemy, then lean the other way and prune more aggressively toward fewer stems for better airflow. There's no universal rule, only what fits your patch of dirt. And just to bust a couple of stubborn myths on the way out. Suckers absolutely do produce fruit. Left alone, they grow into full branches. So no, you don't need to remove every single one, and you should not prune every plant the same way. Your determinates want to be left mostly alone, so let's bring it all the way back to where we started, to that little plastic tag. That one word, determinate or indeterminate, is the difference between pruning that helps you and pruning that quietly costs you. Read the tag first. Everything else flows from that. For your determinates, clean up the bottom, keep that strong sucker below the first cluster, and then leave them alone. For your indeterminates, start around a foot tall. Pick your number of stems, pinch suckers small, strip the bottom foot of leaves, and stop before harvest. Clean blades, dry mornings, and go into it knowing the real trade you're making. Bigger and earlier, not necessarily more. Your next step, and please actually do this today. Walk out to your garden right now before you touch a single plant and sort your tomatoes into 2 groups, determinates in one, indeterminates in the other. Check the tags, check the growth habit. Just knowing which is which puts you a step ahead of a whole lot of gardeners, and it takes 5 minutes. You've got this. It's genuinely simpler than it looks once you know the 2 paths. I'll see you in the next one, and happy growing!